What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an all-new Let's Play Europa Universalis 4. We are about to dive into a brand new campaign. This is actually going to be our very first World Conquest that we are going to play all the way through. And of course, we are going to be playing on Extended Timeline, which is basically a mod that instead of the game ending in the year 1821, we basically have the ability to play forever, and therefore we have the ability to successfully complete our goals. So one thing that I do want to point out, obviously, we are looking at India. We have played a variety of countries over inside Europe. We have obviously played as England, we've played as France, we've played as Castile, or better yet, Spain. We've played as the Ottomans. We have even played as Muscovy or Russia, but we have really never experienced any type of Indian nation. So one thing that I definitely want to do, despite playing on basically the Extended Timeline mod, which means Iron Man mode is not available, we might as well go ahead and create our own nation, but I'm not really going to do anything too broken or too, too crazy. One thing that I do want to point out is, as you can see, we have Orissa here, which is a 5 provinces territory. What we are absolutely going to do is go ahead and click one of these provinces, and therefore go ahead and load up our Indian nation. And you can see that it is still orange, but surprisingly enough, rather than being called Orissa, it is actually a brand new country called Odisha, with new ideas that I have gave, unique ideas to Odisha. So one thing that I do want to point out is we have up to 200 points to utilize, and I did go ahead and I changed the flag. I changed up a lot of different characteristics as well. So let's go ahead and grant all of these Orissan provinces to Odisha. And therefore, we are exactly at 200 points. Now, another thing that I do want to point out is I wanted to make this campaign and this playthrough as fun and as exciting as possible. So therefore, we're going to add a little bit of lore. As you can see here, our main character, his name is going to be Majid, and of course we are of the Odishan dynasty, and basically this is who we're going to be. We are going to be a 25-year-old man who is unfortunately very greedy, but of course because all of his wealth that he's accumulated, he of course is a very well-advised ruler. So I do want to also point out that Majid is this type of person. He's a wealthy landowner, he's an entrepreneur, he is trying to just grow his kingdom as much as possible. So, because he's 25 years old, he actually, now this is where we're going to start off, basically he went into a political marriage with the Garjat dynasty. Now, they don't necessarily have all that much development as these 3 territories, and despite having 3 very small territories, actually they only have about 12 development, while all of Odisha here has about 58. So therefore, the idea is if we had this political marriage, because Shavana here is the only heir of the Garjat dynasty, and therefore, through a political marriage, we have basically secured ourselves a brand new vassal. And that's kind of where we're going to be starting off. Now, on top of this, this Garjat dynasty, I do want to also point out that our queen that we married is just absolutely god-awful. Because we basically inherited her father's territory, I kind of wanted her to seem useless. So therefore, she has 0 admin, 0 diplo, and because we are basically inheriting their armies as well, I did go ahead and I incorporated 1 military power, and on top of all of that, Shavana, of course, is actually indulgent, so she, of course, is a drunk. So I find that very comical. Another thing I do want to point out, other than changing the flag, I did not really change anything at all inside our government forms. However, starting off, we obviously have the Odishan traditions, which are granted immediately as you begin the campaign. And because of this royal marriage, I wanted to give economic bonuses rather than actual strength bonuses to our military, if that makes any sense at all. And the idea was to basically get some economic bonuses for our military, because like land maintenance modifier and more national manpower modifier basically will improve our armies without actually making them fight any harder. So that was the idea, because we're this businessman, this entrepreneur. How do we inspire somebody through, I don't know where I'm going with this, but through, like, economic means? It feels like that's the only feasible thing that we can actually do. And what's actually neat is I had the ability to create and name all of these ideas that we're going to be unlocking over time. So obviously we have land maintenance modifier and national manpower modifier that we start off with. These are the traditions. And eventually we will unlock the Bureau of Collections, which is basically going to give us more national tax modifier. We are going to be unlocking the Department of Labor, and therefore all of our construction costs for the rest of the game will be 10% cheaper. Eventually, we will get a national bank, giving us yearly inflation reduction. And this doesn't necessarily seem all that great, but I promise you, not dealing with inflation is going to be very, very useful. Eventually, we will unlock the Department of Commerce and Trade, giving us more goods produced modifier. So therefore, we're actually producing more goods and, supplies, and therefore we could sell more of them. And eventually, as we start moving through all of these administrative ideas, I figured it would be really nice to obviously use our economic power to therefore influence the church. And so then we would basically establish the Department of Religious Affairs, and therefore getting another missionary. And then as we start through the military power, the administrative power, eventually towards the end of the game, we're ultimately going to be focusing on trade. And therefore, we're going to get the national dockyards, giving more naval force limit modifiers, and eventually the Department of Maritime Trade, more trade efficiency. I thought that would be 30%, but I see what 30 points were costed. And then at the very end of the game, we are, of course, going to be unlocking our ambition, which is the State Business School, which is ultimately going to give us another merchant. Now, basically, you're probably thinking, oh man, one merchant, that's not really going to do much. But if we have a trade empire, we could ultimately really start to dictate the flow of trade and the flow of goods as they just pour through our game. So let's go ahead and we are going to press the done check mark. Another thing that I do want to point out, we are starting on, I believe it's November the 1st, 1444. I don't see the November here. But we are going to go into our saved game map modes, and apparently I actually deleted the save 30 seconds ago. Alright, well, basically what I did is there was a save here that made us be able to ally one par, but maybe we'll get it this time. If we don't, we obviously can figure that out. Because we're playing on the extended timeline mod, we absolutely can't play Iron Man, so we could, but there's no reason to play it. So let's go ahead and do a normal mode and just dive on in. Hopefully we don't necessarily have the worst starting roll. Exactly who hates us and who doesn't. I would like to ally myself with Wanpar or Vijayanagara, but I'm not sure who's going to hate me. So let's go ahead and stand by. Okay, so we have Vijayanagara, they hate us. We have Bamanis, they hate us. Wanpar does not hate me, so this is actually the start that we wanted. What are the odds of that? Let's go ahead and begin improving relations with Wanpar. I do want to go ahead and get ourselves an alliance with this country. They are very powerful, and I do want to keep that as much as possible. Let's go ahead and also begin. Bengal hates me. We're probably going to gobble up this country of Yarkin here. There's only about 6 development in total. So I suppose let's go ahead and start building up, using our diplomats, building up our spy network. And therefore, we also have Malwa. They absolutely hate us, but this is a vassal of Malwa. I'm trying to find countries that won't really hate me. Maybe Mewar. I would like Vijayanagara, but I really don't think we're going to be allied anytime soon. We could go ahead and get ourselves an alliance with Gujarat. I guess this is going to be our best option, so I suppose let's just dive on in. So the very first thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and establish our rival. So it's the 11th of November, 1444. Let's go ahead. It looks like Bengal, Bamanis, Malwa, and Andhra absolutely hate us, so let's go ahead and return the favor. We are going to be rivaling Bengal. We are going to be rivaling Bamanis. We are going to be rivaling Malwa, maybe. I could take over Andhra. It's not really necessary. I believe Andhra is allied to Vijayanagar. And it looks like they are, so I can't easily gobble them up. So I suppose our final rival, if I could figure this out, wherever that rival page was. Let's go ahead and rival Malwa, because I might as well go ahead and gobble up some of these territories if I can. So now that we've established our rivals, it looks like we have our next tab is to deal with our estates. The only estate that is basically upset right now is the nobility. They believe they are entitled to more land, and therefore I guess we should oblige. I want to find any type of grassland province, so I'm guessing this one or Cuttack will be the type of province I am going to be granting the nobility. It says I have a fort here. I see a fort. Ah, that's because it's our capital. So I was going to destroy this fort. I don't know if it's necessary. I could destroy this one, because I definitely don't want to be paying maintenance. And I do want to create a nobility faction inside Kalingandra, excuse my pronunciation, and I believe the nobility is no, they're actually still not satisfied. So let's find one other province. This 11 development province should be fine. I don't really want to give them 17 development, so we'll give them 11. And the nobility has been dealt with. Our next priority is to basically establish our advisors. Now, basically, we have a very powerful ruler, and because we are well advised, we should have one additional advisor to choose from. I think as we start off, obviously we have level 1 advisors and level 2 advisors. You would think a level 1 advisor would be half the price of a level 2 advisor, but that is actually not the case. A level 2 advisor is about 4 times as much money. So obviously it makes financial sense early on while we don't have the income to select one of these level 1 advisors. And usually you only have 3 to choose from, but because our ruler is well advised, we are, of course, going to take the fourth option and unlock a treasurer. We're going to get more taxation, only 10% more, but, ooh, you know what? Prestige might not be bad. Let's get the money because we are going to need more. And we are now out of income. I was going to hire on more advisors, but we're only making 1 ducat a month. Had I have hired on another advisor, we would now be losing money. So speaking of income, because we're not in a war, we obviously are not fighting anybody. What we want to do is reduce our army maintenance all the way down to 0, and then press 1 click to the right. And the idea is because we have almost very little army maintenance, obviously our income went up, but unfortunately it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Our morale went all the way down to almost 20%. Of, if I can calculate that correctly, about 20% of all the morale. So if we were to get surprised attack or ambushed by any means, all 9,000 of these troops would just absolutely die. So we are playing with fire here, but I really feel like this is going to be one of our best options. So other than that, we can't really hire any more advisors. We have the ability to select another mission. I think what we're going to do is Lakhnor, protect our brethren in Lakhnor, is part of Bengal. I feel like the easiest thing, the easiest mission we have, let's go ahead and improve our prestige. And if we can somehow get up to 50 prestige, which is going to be a bit of a daunting challenge, we're going to get about 100 administrative power for free. So I absolutely want to do that. And finally, because we are a different religion, we obviously are playing as Hindu. I'm going to scroll out so you can see all of the different religions in the game. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Catholic and Orthodox countries, and we even actually played Sunni as... No. We played as the Coptic religion when we played as the Ottomans. That was actually kind of unique and kind of exciting. But what we're going to do is basically... Hinduism allows us to select which god we would like to worship, and each god has a variety of different abilities. And basically, the god you worship, your ruler will worship that particular god for life. So this isn't necessarily permanent, but it definitely isn't really fluid in any means. So obviously, it's not really flexible. So the idea is it's probably going to be around 50 years or 60 years till we get to re-choose. So I believe, looking at all of these different gods, I see Sierra here gives trade efficiency and national tax modifier. I absolutely like that. But I think what I'm going to have to do is go with the discipline, giving our giving our military more discipline. I feel like that's going to be our #1 option. And finally, before we actually press unpause, let's go ahead and destroy these 6 ships. I don't need them at all. And the idea is if we could somehow take our 11 vessels here, we're going to begin protecting trade. These are all light ships. And if we protect the trade inside the Ganges Delta, we are going to be going ahead and gaining 1.15 ducats. And what's neat is we don't have to pay the maintenance on these ships anymore because we're still paying it, but we're making more of a profit. So now it's going from a negative modifier to a positive modifier. Okay, unpausing the game, we have the absolute worst sun in the world. And surprisingly, it only lasted just a few days. Our god-awful ruler gave us a god-awful son, so I think what we're gonna do is try to get this man killed. I know that sounds bad, but I feel like this is going to be a massive problem down the road. So other than that, let's unpause this game. What our very first goal will be is probably to declare war on Yarkand. I want both of these provinces, and I probably will move down to Bastar after I take Yarkand as well. So kind of like a bit of a territorial conquest. I should have the ability to hire up a new advisor. Surprisingly, this guy is more expensive, but I don't want him at all. Let's go ahead and hire a statesman, giving us more diplomatic reputation. And the idea is if we have more advisors, we then have the ability to get more and more power and therefore more technology. It looks like we have another merchant that's free. In fact, we have 3 merchants, but because everything is so far away in the early campaign, we can only use one of them right now. So let's go ahead and send another one of our merchants to basically just collect a little bit more income. And I feel like we're really going to get like 2.7, yeah, not even 10% income of 2 ducats. So that's almost nothing. But I mean, it's better than nothing. But other than that, royal marriage from Yarkand, no thank you. I feel like I'm going to just annihilate you very soon. Devi the Mother, I believe this is the one who we are actually worshipping. An heir was recently born to the House of Odisha. Little Abd Allah makes you hopeful for the future. His birth also brought to mind the reasons why you view Devi as the peerless, supreme, divine ruler. Although you may rule Odisha as the Maharaja, the power that perpetuates your bloodline, and indeed the world itself, is in the domain of the feminine. Recognize this aspect of the goddess in your own spouse makes you ponder the beauty and kindness of Devi. So basically where we stand, I love my wife, but she is no goddess. Or, so basically where we stand, we could go into meditation. We would have some negative modifiers, some issues for the next 5 years. But if we come out of meditation, there's a chance to be permanently better for the rest of the, the time my ruler is alive. And that means probably getting more wisdom, and therefore improving his admin, his diplo, probably not diplo, but maybe military skill. So let's go ahead and try to do some meditation. That is kind of unique to the Hinduism religion. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we're obviously going to try. Ha-ha! Our alliance from Wanpar, exactly what we needed. As you can see, they have 15,000 troops. That is absolutely amazing. My next priority is to establish a land access between both of our countries. So then, therefore, we could basically transport between the two. And as you can see, our wife's father's lands have basically given us the vassal of Garjat here. And of course, they don't have much development. They're all jungle territories. But we have 3,000 additional units, which is basically 25% more troops, or 33% more troops than what we actually have. Okay, so we are about to declare war Once we get to around 15 spy network, I am going to begin, unfortunately, re-bringing up all of this army maintenance, and therefore we are going to be losing some money. We might even go into one of our very first loans, which is not good. Looks like the surrender of Maine has already happened. If you've watched the Better Than Napoleon campaign, I'm sure you are well aware of that. Okay, it's now the 1st of October. Let's bring our army maintenance all the way to the top. We are losing 0.5 ducats every month. Do we have any type of generals available? No. We could either spend military power to hire a general, or we could go ahead into our estate map mode and go ahead and call... Ooh, no, we have 60% influence. Absolutely am not going to do that. But instead, we could do it a different way. We could get 100 military power for free, losing some loyalty, but then spending 50 of those power for a general. But while we're in the screen, let's go ahead, and we can't actually demand admin. Now we can. And let's look at the merchant guilds. I do want to also go ahead, if I had 25%, I could also demand diplomatic support. I think what I'm going to do is give Cuttack to the merchant guilds. It's my strongest province. That might have been a bad idea, but eventually we're going to milk them out for a lot of different improvements. So let's go ahead and ask for contribution, 42 coin for free, and demand diplomatic support. And now all of our technology is basically going to be coming a little bit sooner because we milked all of our estates and for all of their resources. So it's kind of like in a way, it's kind of like taxing our estates, but instead of making money, we actually get useful resources. Okay, we are now have 20 spy network. We are going to go ahead and fabricate our claim on Yarkand, and I guess we are going to put our units into position. We never hired our general. Please be good. Please be good. Woo! We have a 3-2 leader. And now, recall this diplomat. We are going to be declaring war on Yarkand. They have no allies. And we are going to be moving on into the siege. Alright, well, thank you all so much for joining me, everybody. This is going to be the end of our very first episode. I hope you all have an awesome day, and I will see you in our next adventure.